So today's lesson is on primarily forces, which we're going to keep talking more about. So what is force? It's the cause of acceleration. It's kind of hard to wrap your head around, or I have a hard time wrapping my head around it. But essentially, it's when something acts on something else. So if you think about like the phrase brute force, he used brute force to move that block of concrete. It's like you're acting on something else, pushing, moving, interacting, causing something else to move or not move. That's what force is. And we're going to get a little bit better definition of what it is when we start talking about Newton's laws. But that's just kind of the basics. We're going to talk about a couple different kinds of forces. But first of all, you need to know that there are both balanced and unbalanced forces. So when we look at an object specifically, we look at all the different forces that are acting on it, and if they all equal each other, they're the same. They have the same vector amount. They have the same mathematical number showing that there's one force is going this direction is large, and another going in another direction. So just like here, right, we have 300 newtons going one way, 300 newtons going the other way. You can see those arrows are the same length. So they cancel each other out. They balance each other. If you're playing tug of war and you have the same number of forces, it's not moving. So they're balanced. However, you need to know that if the forces are unbalanced, so here we have 400 and here we have 300. So you notice that the arrow on the right is smaller than the arrow on the left. Then it's going to cause movement because then the people over here are able to pull these people to the ground, right? So they're unbalanced. It causes the rope and the people to move. So balanced versus unbalanced. There's a couple different kinds of forces I'll talk about. There's two you're going to learn about today. There's plenty of others. There's a whole bunch that we don't even have official names for. And you're going to have a chance in your work for tomorrow to identify forces. But the first one you should know about is the force of friction. And we can actually break this down even more into different kinds of friction. But friction is essentially the forces between two objects in contact that opposes the motion of either object. So how I think of this, that's like the fancy definition is two things. They basically get caught up on each other and they cause each other to not go anywhere. Friction really kind of like stops motion. It's kind of like if you're walking along and you go by a tree and a branch like grabs your jacket and it stops you, right? You get yanked in the other way, or you have something else that like catches up on you and it stops you from moving. That would not be friction, but it's kind of what's happening on like a super small like level, like where you can't see with your eyes. That's what's happening is those like molecules, which we're going to learn about in chemistry, get caught up on each other and they eventually slow each other down. You're probably more familiar with friction than you think of, or you would realize. So this person, there's a lot of friction going on. He's not able to do his slide on the ground. There's so much friction that instead of sliding, everything just gets caught up and he falls over flat on his face. An example of something without very much friction would be ice. The friction is so low that you just keep sliding. There's nothing to catch you or stop you from moving. Friction is actually definitely a good thing because without it, we would never be able to stop. So if you think about a car, if you are on a flat surface on pavement and you just stick your foot on the gas and take it off real quick, you might move for a couple seconds and then your car is going to stop. That's because of friction. If we didn't have friction, if you just press the gas, you would just keep going forever until you ran into something or you pressed on the brakes. And brakes actually use friction too to stop your car. It's the friction of your pads against your rotor that stops your car. So it just depends on kind of on object you're talking about. Another force that's pretty common and was going to come back with Newton's laws definitely is gravity. So it's the attraction between two objects, mostly at the molecular level, but it translates kind of big picture. So gravity is the reason why we are on this planet instead of floating away. It's why the Earth goes in a big circle around the sun is because they're kind of attracted to each other, so it just keeps pulling the Earth around. So here's an example of gravity at work. The cat jumps off the balcony and the gravity of the earth just sucks it right down to the ground. Boop. All right. And an example of no gravity is when you're in outer space. There's not very much gravity out there if you're not standing on the earth at all. Or if the moon, there's less gravity on the moon. So if you let go, you just kind of float off into infinity. Goodbye. I hope you have a lot of food. So gravity is a good thing too. It keeps us all from floating away. So that's just a quick tutorial on forces, friction, and gravity. And stay tuned for your tutorial in 2 days on Newton's laws. Call me if you need help or send me a WhatsApp message.